In this video, we're going to be talking about the differences with RAW files from different cameras. This actually is a follow-up video to the video where I showed the ProRes RAW coming out of the Sony a7S III when I tried to make RAW adjustments in Final Cut. And what I'm hoping to show is a reason for my comments and the things that I say in my videos. So here I have three different sets of clips. These are 8K clips, the first one. Second set are 6K clips. And the last set are 4K clips. These clips are clips from the Red Helium, from the Canon EOS R5. The ones that are in 6K are from REDCODE, from the Blackmagic Pocket 6K, as well as the C500 Mark II. And the 4K clips are from the Canon C200, as well as the Blackmagic Pocket 4K. So let's go over to the color tab so that we can see all of the clips. And we are in Camera RAW Controls. So we can see here, this is Canon RAW. And this is from because this is an 8K clip, this is from the R5. This is also from the R5. This is from the Red Helium. Once again, Red Helium. And once again, Red Helium. And then we go into the 6K clips, and this is from the C500 Mark II. This is Blackmagic RAW, so this is the Pocket 6K. And this is the REDCODE. And this is once again the Pocket 6K. And then the next set of clips are the 4K. So this is the Pocket 4K, Blackmagic RAW. This is the C200. Again, Blackmagic Pocket 4K, Canon C200, and the Canon C200 once again. So let's take a look at what the differences are when it comes to RAW controls, which is what triggered my response in the comments that I made in my Sony a7S III video. So if we look at Canon RAW controls, we have the ability to set a white balance, any of the presets, as well as make any color temperature adjustments that we want. We can select what space we want to be working in. This is how it was shot, Canon Cinema Gamut. And we can also select our gamma. I shot it in RAW, so it's Canon Log 2. But if I want to change my gamma to any other curve, I can. Huge, right? And then ISO. When I am decoding Canon RAW, on my ISO range, I have access to the entire range, not just the first half or the second half of the native ISO like we do in Blackmagic RAW. And I'll show you guys that as we move on. So I can change my ISO to anything that I want. And of course, the benefit of making changes in RAW is that it's non-destructive. So let's go back to what I actually shot. So this was at ISO 800. And again, I can change my color temperature to anything that I want. And it is actually making the changes to the RAW clip in the RAW settings, which again is non-destructive. Kind of a big deal. Something that, at least in ProRes RAW in Final Cut, it's not available if you're capturing ProRes RAW out of the Sony a7S III. If I need to make tint adjustments, of course I have that ability. I can also adjust my exposure by 5 stops. So I can go 5 stops below, or I can go 5 stops above. And what you're noticing is that even if I make these changes, right? So like, let me just reset this to 0. Look at my waveform. So even if I increase by 5 stops, I'm still not clipping any of the highlight information. This is one of the things and one of the areas that actually matter the most to me, and I believe to most of us that are out there actually shooting. So how I capture in camera matters, absolutely, right? If I clip the highlights in camera, I'm not going to be able to recover them. But this level of flexibility is not available, at least not as of today, which is 17 January 2021, in ProRes RAW out of the Sony a7S III when you're editing in Final Cut. So reset this once again, put it back at 0. I can adjust my sharpness if I want to, And here's another thing that is actually really, really cool and important. This highlights. For the sake of this demonstration, I'm just going to quickly apply here we go, Pro. These are the RAW. And I'm going to go with broadcast. Okay, that didn't do it. So I need something that absolutely pushes my LUT or my clip to bring the highlights like way high. So give me just a quick second here. Find something. Canon full to full. Here we go. Cinema Gamut 2 BT. Okay, let's try that. Okay, that's still not clipping. So I'll just do this. Let's adjust the ISO to where I'm actually clipping the highlights. So let's do 6400. Okay. Obviously this is messed up, right? This highlight lever allows me to bring the highlights back down. So if I absolutely needed or wanted to increase my ISO that much, I can pull back the highlights like 3 full stops, maybe 3.5. And that's something that, again, is one of the areas that, for me at least, matters a lot when I'm working with RAW files. Because if I managed to screw this up when I was shooting, then I would at least be able to pull that much back down. And then I could also further adjust my exposure. And what's crazy is that I just made these changes even though I adjusted my ISO to 6400. This level of RAW control, again, as of today, isn't available in ProRes RAW, in Final Cut, coming out of the Atomos recorders that are capturing that RAW that the Sony a7S III is able to output via the HDMI. This, my friends, is exactly why I said what I said in my Sony a7S III video. So it's very important that if we're comparing apples to apples, you all understand why I'm saying what I'm saying, but then also I've now shown you in both scenarios what the differences are. And of course, this doesn't stop at just Canon RAW, right? Like I have that same level of control on any other clip that is shot on Canon. On Red, I'm again in that same situation, right? So I can decide, do I want to change my ISO? Maybe I want to change it to ISO, I don't know, let's go 3200. And if I apply the red LUT, okay, I'm still not clipping the highlights because I didn't clip them in when I shot them, but I can also then come back and make some exposure adjustments if I need to. And this is again why it is that I made the comments that I made regarding ProRes RAW. This is flexibility. This can save a shot. This can help you in post-production. This level of control, where you can just make ISO adjustments and then make everything either brighter or darker. That means when you make everything brighter or darker, the entire waveform either shifts up or down. That's not really all that cool or useful to me. So what's most useful, at least for me now that I have seen how today in my current workflow with the software that I use, how that might work when I shoot on the Sony a7S III, I know that it is very important that I nail everything in camera. And that was the point of that video. And of course, all red clips work the exact same way so it doesn't matter if it's Komodo, if it's the Gemini, if it's Monstro, IPP2 works the exact same way. And that's the best part about IPP2 in my opinion. It doesn't really matter which camera you decided to shoot with, your workflow is identical. Yeah, I just really like the level of control that we get out of Red cameras or Red RAW, as well as Canon. Okay, and here's an underexposed shot because I was trying to expose for the background. This is wintertime in the back of my office here. So if I choose to increase my ISO, my clipping point or my highlight is going to stay essentially the same. Like I'm not going to clip the highlights, even if I increase the ISO. And you can see that I just went 6400, and basically the same thing that we could see out of the window, we can still see now. The only thing that is noticeable, if I do that, of course, is now I can see the noise. So this is common and a normal thing on Red cameras. It's just, that's the way it works. But again, we have all of that level of control. And I would argue at this point, at least where we are in January 2021, that Canon cameras give me a lot more RAW control than Red. So as soon as Canon standardizes, which I believe that they are very close to making this happen with 1DX Mark III, the Canon C200, the C500 Mark II, the C300 Mark III, and the R5, I suppose they have already standardized it. They're making it so that the same level of confidence that you could have, or the same level of control in post-production with the IPP2 workflow, is now available in those cameras that I just mentioned from Canon. So the big difference, of course, in my opinion, is how many more controls do we get with Canon versus how many controls we get with Red. And as you can see here, we have a lot more controls on Canon. Contrast, gain, lift, midtone, detail, saturation, color boost, shadows, color temperature, tint, exposure, sharpness, and highlights, as well as ISO, gamma, color space, and any of the white balance presets. And on Red, of course, we have ISO, we have this chroma noise reduction, because Red cameras generally have more noise. But again, that's a different topic. We have color temperature, tint, and exposure adjustment. So you can see we can fine tune a lot more out of Canon RAW than we can out of Red. So this is again another Canon clip, and you can see lots and lots of options. Blackmagic RAW. I really like Blackmagic RAW for the main reason that it just flies in Resolve. And as you can see here, we have a lot more controls again compared to Red. Here's Red, and now here's Blackmagic RAW. So you can set your decode quality to a resolution. You can use the project or the resolution, and then of course you can go decode using the clip data or Blackmagic RAW default, which grays everything out. I always like to have the clip data just so that I can actually have control. The color science, of course, the newest generation is going to be what you would want to do. Your white balance point as shot, or you can set a preset, it's up to you. Color space, which of course is all the Blackmagic stuff, and then ISO. Now, you remember I mentioned that on Red cameras and on Canon cameras, we can have access to the entire range of ISO. Well, in Blackmagic RAW, you're either working with the lower ISO values or the higher ISO values. And depending on what ISO you choose or you chose or shot at, then that's the range that you're going to have access to. So here as an example, I can go down to ISO 100 and I max out at ISO 1000. So 1280 is when it would flip over to the next set of ISOs. Thought I would mention that. With the exposure adjustment, again, this is what I was saying about, making everything either brighter or darker. The entire waveform moves up or down. And you notice that that's not what happened when we did the same thing here on the Canon clip. And it's also not what happens when you do it on Red. It actually begins to expand, leaving your white point or your highlights where they were. Whereas in Blackmagic RAW, that's really not the way that it works. Everything moves either up or down. So you can actually get yourself to blow out your highlights, where in Red or on the Red clip, I can't really do that. I just adjusted my exposure by 8 stops. Still not clipping any highlight information. I believe that that's one very big difference. Regardless, Blackmagic RAW is terrific. And one thing that none of the other RAW formats offer, that I've only ever seen it out of Blackmagic cameras, is this little checkbox for highlight recovery. But to me, this is the magic of Blackmagic RAW and also Cinema DNG. If for some reason you had information, I'm going to see if maybe this clip has some. No, it doesn't. Shucks. Too bad. If I had information, or maybe this one does. Well, nope, I didn't clip it. Let's try it anyway. Let me adjust my exposure. Oh, there we go. Let's see. Let's take a look at this part of the clip, of the waveform, and see if it makes a difference here. Yeah, there we go. That's what I wanted to show. So here is how it was shot, right? And you can see I have a very flat or hard cutoff in my highlights, which of course are these little fairy lights that are in the background. But if I click highlight recovery, I just gained additional highlight information. This is the magic behind Blackmagic. I guess it's the best way to say it. Like, I wish every other RAW codec in the world had that option, because that little bit of extra highlight information is something that I think is just awesome. And it comes in really, really handy, especially when you have shots like this, where I think I've already recovered that. Yeah. Where you want to get just that little bit of extra information out of, the little hairs that are being hit by direct sunlight, so that, and without clipping them, of course. And I want that little bit of extra that very few codecs can actually capture and retain in a really pleasing way. And I think that's one of the things that I really like about ARRI. But this is one of the things that Blackmagic does exceptionally well. Exceptionally well. So this is actually the Pocket. Oh, this is the 6K. Okay, so then this is the C200 now. And we can see here, C200 clip. Again, all of that information is available to us. I can change the ISO. I can, adjust my exposure if I want to in any way. I can recover some highlight information if needed. It's just a level of flexibility that, again, really, this is what I'm used to. This is what I've been shooting with. I've been shooting Red for, I'm going on 7 years at this point. I've been shooting Blackmagic Cinema DNG since they introduced the very first 2.5K camera. When anyone mentions RAW controls, there's an expectation in my head, and that expectation was unfortunately not matched or met when I captured in ProRes RAW out of the Sony a7S III. So to me, they are two very, very different worlds. And this level of control, again, from my perspective, Canon gives you the most amount of control options for your raw data. Blackmagic, their ace or their secret sauce is that highlight recovery piece. Red is just the way that you could choose any one of their cameras and literally apply the exact same grade if you needed to, and everything will match. So they all have their strengths and weaknesses, and I just wanted to show the actual differences and the level of control differences in this video. Hopefully you guys found this somewhat helpful. If you don't have access to all of these different cameras or all these different types of clips, then maybe this will help you determine if I had to invest in a camera system with the capability of shooting RAW or a RAW workflow, which one of these RAW workflows would actually work best for me. I'll catch you guys later.